Hey investor friends, I'm Michelle Markey, and if you love legendary investor Charlie Munger as much as I do, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe, because today, February 15, 2023, was the Daily Journal Corporation's annual meeting featuring Charlie Munger answer questions for the good part of about 2.5 hours. And he sat alongside the new chairman and interim CEO, Stephen myhill-jones, who I estimate is probably in his late 40s. And he's running the business as a modern technology company now, because Charlie Munger basically admitted that the good old days of the publishing world are kind of dying at Daily Journal. So they have to focus on technology and helping automate the court system in order to survive. But today I'm going to share some of my takeaways from what Charlie said and some things of what I took notes on and what I gleaned to be especially interesting, considering it's coming from Charlie Munger, who there's so much gems of wisdom that he shared. And maybe in future videos, I'll also do some more videos about Charlie in this particular meeting, because he taught us so much. Like, I would say it would be good to go back and re-listen to everything Charlie said, because it's just that valuable if you want to be a better investor yourself. So with all that, if you've made sure to like and subscribe, let's get into what I thought of what Charlie said today. And let me start by addressing the elephant in the room, Alibaba, where Charlie Munger said in answering a couple of questions that Alibaba was one of his biggest mistakes, which is kind of like mind blown after seeing Daily Journal Corporation own Baba kind of no matter what in the past couple of years, even through Q4 of 2022, based on the 13F filing that came out in early January this year. And so far, who knows if Daily Journal is still owning Baba or if they've sold in the first quarter 2023. That remains to be seen. And maybe April 1st will make fools out of a lot of Baba bag holders when the next 13F filing comes out. So we'll just have to see. Who knows whether Charlie, in spite of him saying that Baba ended up being one of his biggest mistakes, if Daily Journal under the new chairman and CEO will still hold onto that investment and try to see it through. And maybe they'll just try to break even on that someday. Although, considering how much gains they've had from BYD, I could also see them doing some more tax loss harvesting in the future if they really had to. But maybe they're not super incentivized to sell, in spite of Charlie saying how big of a mistake this was. And Charlie was being pretty critical about Jack Ma in saying that he was poking a bear with a sharp stick. And of course, that was not really a good thing that ended up happening, with a lot of regulations coming down on Alibaba and them just being in a tailspin for the last couple of years as far as how their stock has performed. But in the meantime, with their stock being really beaten down, they've done a ton of buybacks. So maybe it's not also terrible for Baba, and perhaps the future economic prospects could perhaps be a little bit better with China opening up and so on. But basically what Charlie Munger ended up saying was that he may have been kind of charmed with the internet coming in and with online retailing kind of charming people, including himself. And then he realized it's still retail. And because of that, I guess maybe the business economics were not as good as he once thought they would be, where he said that he overestimated the future returns of Alibaba. And so I guess based on some of that, maybe he's not so optimistic about Alibaba as much as he once was, but he still maybe thinks that it'll probably do okay, all things considered, with the rise of China's economy in the future years, and considering he has a favorable opinion of China's leaders. So considering that, maybe things might work out kind of okay. And I think that if Alibaba can get its cloud business to be as powerful as similar Amazon Web Services is powerful in the US and wherever AWS is, maybe Alibaba Cloud has a fighting chance of kind of carrying the rest of the online e-commerce business, because we all know that e-commerce margins are pretty thin, and even Amazon basically breaks even with that stuff. So I think that there's some lessons here to be learned, that as much as Charlie Munger is super wise and he says that he's pretty okay with long run estimations, but in short run, he's not always so sure. So he didn't want to comment on, say, the Federal Reserve's short-term interest rate activities with inflation. But overall, I think that Charlie Munger, maybe he's been convinced with Mohnish whispering into his ear about Alibaba, and maybe he was convinced with all of those hangouts with Mohnish that maybe Baba wasn't the best kind of investment there is. So maybe we'll see if DJCO holds on to Baba or not, but that'll be something I'll be very curious to see come April. And considering Charlie is 99 years old, he's refreshingly well-versed in many things tech, as he talked about how Intel has fallen behind in semiconductors and how he's not sure if they're going to catch up. And when he was asked what his thoughts are on Berkshire Hathaway reducing their stake in Taiwan Semiconductor by 86%, he didn't really answer that question directly, but he claimed to say that maybe he doesn't know semiconductors all that well, but for a younger person who might understand semicos more, TSM could potentially be a good investment for younger people, but maybe he's not trying to say that that's advice necessarily. So you have to try to read between the lines from Charlie, and also take a hint when Berkshire itself reduced their stake by that much. So that's something to really keep in mind, in spite of Charlie saying that TSM is one of the best at what they do. And also he seemed a little bit unsure about the US government giving a bunch of loans to semiconductor companies, which, while good to create a bunch of fabrication factories and whatnot in the United States, it still seems a little bit questionable as to how much that's going to help spur semiconductor manufacturing in the US. And also, he said that the US government may not necessarily forgive those loans, so he's not sure how much of a boost that will really be to the semiconductor industry in the US. And so that's one comment he had, and also how he was really admiring and raving about his BYD investment, of how they turned something like $270,000 in BYD at Berkshire Hathaway into an $8 or $9 billion final outcome, which is just incredible how much that returned. And that was one of Charlie's only contributions in terms of investment ideas at Berkshire. And it was like this once in a lifetime amazing result. So kudos to Charlie for doing such an amazing job advising Berkshire on that pretty much home run hit of an investment. So also, in addition to that, he was talking about electric vehicles and how Tesla has to lower prices while BYD is raising prices in China, and that they have revenues of something like $2 billion. So even though as much as Charlie has said that Elon Musk is a smart man, he's also very peculiar, and he seemed to be throwing a little bit of shade at Tesla considering some of that. And then finally, as far as some other fun tech stuff, we've all heard before how Charlie has huge misgivings about crypto, and there was a recent Wall Street Journal article, I think on February 2nd, of an opinion piece that Charlie Munger said that basically crypto should be outlawed or banned or something like that. And he repeated some of this today in saying that he thinks of crypto as crypto crappo, and also the S word that I'm not going to mention, but you know that another synonym for the S word is poop. So basically he kept referring to crypto as poop, and how he admires how the Chinese leader said, "Not in my China," as far as crypto goes. So he thinks that China did the right thing in banning crypto, and he's deeply ashamed of our country for allowing crypto to exist. And it's basically one of the worst kinds of gambling you could possibly have. So as far as some of Charlie's musings on tech goes, there we have it. Those are some of the bigger highlights that I could remember off the top of my head. But if you remember other cool tech gems that Charlie mentioned today, please be sure to also share those in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. And Charlie Munger shared way more gems of wisdom and wit than I can cover in today's video. But among some of my favorites that he said was that some people think that Daily Journal is like a small Berkshire. And he said, they think that it'll double like rabbits. And he said, of course, it's not a small Berkshire. And he said, I'm 99 years old, for Christ's sake. So he's kind of suggesting that he's not going to live forever. So it's unlikely that DJCO is going to double like gangbusters like Berkshire once did many times back in the day. And there were some really great questions from some of my friends, including Adam Mead, the author of The Complete Financial History of Berkshire Hathaway and a professional investor himself, who I recently spoke with. And he asked this great question to Charlie, referencing when back in the 1995 Berkshire Hathaway meeting, Charlie was still 71 back then. And he said one of the bigger concerns with getting old is this idea of senescence, where there is a deterioration that comes with age and the ability to still basically function. And even though Charlie said that that's definitely still a concern, he said that he's shrewder now at 99 than he was at 71 years old. But his sex life is a different question, which was just hilarious. And then also my friend Alejandro Salcedo asked about how the secret to life is to have low expectations, as Charlie and Warren Buffett have talked about before. And Charlie said, yes, well, you work as hard as you can and advance 1 inch at a time. That's a secret to life. And basically, that's what you got to do. And he said, for every guy who succeeds, there's 1,000 failures, and someone who's a little bit nuts will succeed. So that's what you basically got to do, is you got to be a little bit nuttier than the competition in order to succeed in life. And so also, if you defer gratification, you have a tremendous advantage. And I bet Charlie Munger, if he had done the marshmallow test when he was a young kid, he would have probably passed that with flying colors. And even Becky Quick said that maybe she'll try that with her kids and see if they're able to delay gratification, because apparently that's what separates the better investors from the not so good investors, if you're able to delay gratification. And so with that, if you enjoyed this video or learned something, I hope you'll like and subscribe, and let me know in the comments what you thought about some of what Charlie Munger said today. I'd love to hear what you took away from the meeting as well. Till next time.